I'm Paula Mandarino from the North Carolina Bird Atlas, in case some of you weren't here for the kickoff. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for everyone who participated in the weekend. This is our first one, so we're excited to have gotten it going, and that we had some success in such an exciting weekend. So thank you all for participating in the very first one that we've had. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a quick overview of how the weekend went with some highlights from each state. And then we're going to have like some breakout conversations after that. And then we're going to announce our overall state winner. So it's going to be a fun day. I think that's everything. So I can go ahead and hand the mic over to Doug.
All right. And sorry, Chris, do we have the slide? There it is. Yeah, you guys don't need to see my sweaty face. It's a scorcher up here in Maine. Anyways, this is a fun one. I think especially seeing a quick map like this, we'll get to see some more as we go state by state, as Paula mentioned. But really cool to just see really the coverage that we got this year. So one thing that I wanted to do for any folks that came to kickoff last week, you might remember there are a couple slides I showed of just some of our stats going into the weekend, I guess. And we'll update those real quick. So we can go ahead one more slide. So these were the numbers that we looked at last week. Important to double check and look again and see, especially kind of this, what I'll call the second column here. So the first one, number of atlases, is just how many atlases have either been completed or are being done in the state at this time. So cool to see North Carolina getting their first atlas in now, Maine on its second, but then Maryland, DC, and New York updating their third. And it's, again, it's getting to update these and see those changes over time that really gives us a lot of the value in doing these. Perhaps more important for what we're going to talk about really the rest of this evening is thinking about where we are in our atlases. So Maine, we started in 2018, so we're already in year 4 of 5 of our atlas effort. And as you'll see, especially just going down the column, some of our competition here is essentially just getting started. So it's really impressive, I think, to look at the comparison going next into our priority blocks with data. And again, these are our numbers from last Wednesday, right before the kickoff. I took this little snapshot from each state's Ebert, the breeding portal for your state. If you go into the Ebert page and click explore, you can see these numbers yourself. So to see what the coverage was like of the priority blocks that had data already, pretty good, especially Maryland, DC, just absolutely bonkers that going into year 2 already had 98% coverage. And then our quick snapshot of the number of volunteers in each one of these states. So we can go ahead and look at how has our third column priority blocks with data updated on our next slide. And it's about what you would think. Kind of fun to see that, for Maine, we're really trying to push people out into some of our more remote priority blocks. And so I was really happy to see that number get bumped up to 97% of all of the priority blocks now have some data. New York kind of seeing that same thing, nice good climb. A little funny, Maryland, DC, was just too good already. Maybe I'll let them share the details of where the last 2% of those blocks basically sound pretty much impossible to access. So by the end of year 5, I'm sure they'll get someone in there. That's just a super impressive number. And then awesome to see North Carolina with a big jump, which is awesome. Yeah, need to buy a boat ticket, as was shared in the chat, to get to some of those Maryland blocks. And then perhaps my favorite number to see is on our next slide, the number of volunteers that bumped up. Each state, getting, what are we, double-digit increases in each state, which was pretty awesome. And really one of our, big goals of this this competition, this big Atlas weekend, was just to try to engage more people, have fun doing it. And I think that we'll see some more impressive numbers will be shared in just another minute when we do state updates. But the last number that I wanted to show as I was going through each state's Ebert summaries, if we go to the next slide, we should look at a table. I promise we'll only look at this quickly because tables are so boring, but this is the species in each state that had the most confirmations in new blocks. So wrap your head around that for a second. It's kind of ignoring where birds have already been confirmed, but what were, again, in new blocks, the species with the most confirmed records. And so what I thought would be fun, to do is look at state by state, what was the number one? And we kind of get this interesting breakdown of essentially what's going on in each state. So I was mostly interested in this because on our next slide, we'll see Maine's number one species, which was a ruffed grouse, which is
no way
kind of hilarious to me that ruffed grouse, like it is an abundant bird up here, but that it would beat out basically all of our other songbirds and species that are just much more abundant for the number of, again, the most new confirmations. But I think that's actually like an interesting thing that is probably because we're in year 4, where some of those easier species have already been confirmed in so many blocks that to get those more common species is actually harder for us now. But this is also like the perfect weekend, or it was the perfect weekend, where if you find ruffed grouse, they probably have these recently fledged young with them. And so we saw a ton of these reports of recently fledged ruffed grouse, just like this awesome photo that Ashley Duff, one of our volunteers, got. If we go to the next slide, we'll see New York's number one, American robin. And I think this, getting back to the last point, makes a ton of sense. So New York, which is just going into their second year of atlasing, probably one of the most abundant species that they're going to have for the entire project is going to be American robins. So I would say there's such low-hanging fruit for this otherwise still abundant bird to get these confirmations, and especially where they're going to have multiple broods. No wonder they come up to number one. Our next slide, Maryland, DC, who got number one? It was barn swallows. And I'll quickly say I don't have a good explanation because they are definitely an easy species to confirm because you tend, look for a barn, maybe a bridge or some of the other man-made structures that they love nesting on. But interesting that it was so high. I mean, it's a little unfortunate. We tend to see just swallow populations declining so much in I think every state, certainly here in Maine. So nice to see them at the number one spot. And then to not risk talking too much here, I'll give you the final one before I pass it off. So North Carolina, the number one species for new confirmations was the eastern bluebird, which again makes sense from the standpoint that, especially being in just their first year, North Carolina is, eastern bluebird is again one of those easy one to confirm, especially because they're going in man-made boxes. A lot of those boxes are right in our own backyards. So it would be a fun one to watch. Like that map will probably be one of the earliest species to really like fill in on the map. And then you'll have to work a little harder in the subsequent years, but this was a really fun thing, at least for me, to kind of compare all the states this way and kind of see what species were being found in each of them. And I want to make the quick point. The photos that we're going to show off here were all submitted in each state's reading portal through the Macaulay Library, the way that you can upload photos to your Ebert checklist. So big thanks to all those volunteers that did upload these really wonderful shots. We'll be sharing a few throughout the night. And it also really just helps with the data collection. So with that, I will turn it over to Adrian to give us a little summary of how things went in Maine.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. So if you were not with us last week, I'll just reintroduce myself. I am Adrian Leppold. I'm a bird biologist with the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, state songbird specialist, and the project director for the Maine Bird Atlas. And so as Doug already highlighted, we are in year 4 of the project. So some of these numbers were really kind of big successes for us, particularly the number of atlasers just active in one weekend. I was thrilled to see that we had 206 individuals submitting data just over that kind of two and a half day period of time. And I guess my numbers were off because based on Doug's previous slide, we actually had 53 new people. So that's huge, being in year 4, that we would have recruited that many more individuals new to the project, or at least submitting data for the first time. All of those folks massed over 990 hours cumulatively, documenting 199 species for the state, and visiting 439 of our 4,080 total blocks for the state. So we'll just move on, and the backdrop for these next slides, as Doug said, are all photos from some of our individuals, except for the last one. I broke the mold for the very last slide because I just threw a bunch of pictures in at the end. But to announce the Maine state winners, our swamp sparrow here is bringing accolades to Nancy McDonald, who is the winner for the first ever complete atlas checklist submitted. So these are all individual intra-state competition winners, and they were all randomly drawn from Ebert checklists that were submitted. McGill Weber is the winner of our atlas checklist that had at least one coded species. Woo! And our wood thrush is a great transition into checklists with confirmed species, again with the focus on priority blocks here. Jennifer Poppenhagen, and checklist with nocturnal effort, John Wyatt. Thanks for standing out there in the dark for so many hours, John. I hope you got some good things for your effort. Mine only amounted to 1 barred owl, so hopefully more than that. And then we have winners for spending more than 5 minutes in a priority block that had less than 20 hours of effort. Connor Marland, who happens to be one of our Atlas technicians this year, but all of his Atlas work over the weekend was volunteer. So he was in the pool, and this was actually a block I ran into him and I sent him to. So the block that he won for was the one that I was like, hey, what you doing the rest of this afternoon? You want to go volunteer and put some more Atlas time in outside of doing your alpine surveys? And then Ashley Duff is the winner for visiting a block that had not been visited yet. in 4 years of the Maine Bird Atlas. So way to go, Ashley. Thank you for looking out for those. And then one more slide of winners here. So Linda Powell, thanks for spending time on our grassland species. She confirmed both kestrel and bobolink, and her checklist was randomly chosen as our winner for the intra-state competition. And then we just wanted to give a very special shout out to two of our regional coordinators, Bob and Sandy Duchesne. Collectively, over this past Big Atlas weekend, they contributed to completing 5 priority blocks in one weekend. So huge strides forward to our end goal. I love the Doug's posting. Yeah, we need like New Year's Eve screamers and balloons and whatever. And then that is huge. So just a really big thanks. I think this weekend, you know, the friendly competitive spirit in all of us, I think, you know, we wanted to play on that to try to get as much involvement and as many people out there as possible. And so we're really happy to be able to reward all of you for some of your really hard work over the weekend. We have all of your email addresses. We will get in touch with you to get you connected for your winnings. But I think in the grand scheme for all of the states, the real winners in all of this are the birds, right? So that's my next slide of just a compilation, because all of the time that everybody spent out there in the field this weekend, this is what it was really for, right? We like to have fun, and it's fun to kind of get something for our efforts sometimes. But it's as conservationists, as managers, it's really hard to conserve, protect, and preserve these resources that we care about if we don't know where they are or what they're doing or how they're using resources on the landscape. And so that's the ultimate goal of all of these atlases, is for the birds to win in the end. And so your contributions, I think, are really helping get us to that stage for every state at the end. Yes, that yellow warbler. But the cool thing from the Atlas perspective is that confirms 2 species, like a 2-for-1 deal. You confirm yellow warbler and cowbird. So, and with that, I think we are going from north to south. So New York is up next.
Thanks, Adrian. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. This is Julie.
Clear.
Great. I apologize. Our power just went out, and so I'm sitting in the dark here, and I don't have the presentation in front of me. So hopefully this works okay. So my name is Julie Hart, and I am the project coordinator for New York. And we had a really big turnout this weekend. I was very pleasantly surprised to see just how much effort people put in all across the state. You can see on the map that we hit most of the regions all across the state. So we had over 400 atlasers who documented over 200 species. And so far we only have 217 species confirmed. So almost all of our species were documented just in this one weekend. And those people visited 756 blocks. About half of those were priority blocks. And they spent over 1,600 hours atlasing. It was just an incredible amount of time that people spent out there this weekend. And we were really fortunate. We were able to document a few species, I think, that none of the other states documented, some of those being some of the boreal or alpine species. So, we were able to document Bicknell's thrush and black-backed woodpecker, but also some of the other some other species like golden-winged warbler, trumpeter swans, and sedge wrens. We actually have a nice influx of sedge wrens and dick thistles and yellow-breasted chats this year. So I'm really looking forward to see how that turns out here this year. So on the next slide, we do still have a few species that are either re-nesting or are just, having a second or a third brood. So here is a nice photo of, again, the cowbird parasitizing, in this case, a wood thrush nest. But we had, almost 500 observations of nest building, and on that of 72 species. So we still do have a lot of species that are kind of in that first stage of breeding. And again, we had a lot of American robins, as Doug pointed out. I've seen them in the last week at all different stages of carrying nesting material, building nests, feeding young, nest with young, and all of that. So we still have a lot of them out there to document. On the next slide, we're obviously right in the thick of the breeding season with lots of young birds out there. That's partly why we chose this weekend for the big Atlas celebration. And we were able to document young birds, either fledglings or feeding young, of 139 species, over 2,000 observations of young birds, like these wood ducks. And on the next slide, you'll notice there's a woodpecker, there's a flicker nest, and right now, one of the easiest groups of birds to document, other than the waterfowl, is probably those woodpeckers. They're really noisy right now. All the young are calling from their cavities. And on the right-hand side, this bird actually stumped me when I first saw this photo. But if you hit the next button, I think advance for the animation, you'll see that it is actually also a woodpecker. It's a young yellow-bellied sapsucker that's just sitting on the ground, which I thought was quite a cool photo. And then I also saw, and apparently others did as well, some birds that are still building their nests. And so we had 33 species building nests, including black-capped chickadees and chimney swift. And I don't know if this chimney swift photo is the same one that was mentioned in the comments or not, since I can't see the chat. But I thought it was a pretty cool photo to see chimney swift carrying nesting material, particularly this late in the season. We have, in New York this year, we have a really big push to try to get as much information as we can on grassland birds. And I was really excited that we had 12 species were confirmed breeding of all of our grassland species, and that was with 123 different confirmations. So that was really exciting. And that included, sedge wrens and grasshopper sparrows and things like that. So some of our rare species. All right, so the fun part, the winners. So for each of our contests, everyone, as Adrienne mentioned, everyone was randomly selected from all of the eligible checklists in each of the different categories. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see a lot of new names on this list, some people that haven't kind of come across my radar before. So running down this list, we have first time Atlaser Emma de Leon for the number of coded species is Jerry Skinner. confirmed species on checklists with confirmed species is Amy Kahn. For nocturnal hours is Lynn Sprott. And then for visiting some of our more remote and undersurveyed blocks, so blocks that had just a little bit of effort, so less than 20 hours, is Paul Hess. It was the winner in that category. And then in terms of blocks that had not been visited before at all, that would be Sue Barth, who is actually one of our regional coordinators. So that was exciting to see. And with that, I will turn it over to Gabriel.
Thanks, Julie. And I think I've got to say, like, thank you to Julie for coming up with this whole concept of the Big Atlas Weekend and getting all of us other states involved. And I had a ton of fun, both prepping for it and also participating. It's been great. So, gosh, Maryland and DC, we literally have the best atlasers. I don't know how else to say that. I'm just blown away by how much effort was put in. So we had 157 species over the weekend, which runs from Friday night to Sunday night, as everybody probably knows. And there were almost 8,800 observations of those species in 930 checklists. We had about 200 people participating, and they got into 364 blocks, which is about a quarter of our blocks in every county in Maryland. We had 674 hours in total, and we had 46 nocturnal hours, which made me really happy. So if we move on to the first contest, let's see. So we had 210 nests observed over the weekend, which is phenomenal. And it broke down to being about 44 observations per atlaser. So the person who wins the new atlaser award or prize, which is someone who has never submitted a checklist until this weekend, is Linda Millington. So I look forward to meeting you, Linda, over email when I email you to tell you about this. On the next slide, we had 815 complete checklists. So we had 931 checklists total, 815 were complete. What was interesting is, as I was looking at all the different regions and how many checklists they submitted and that, it was really consistent in terms of how many complete checklists and how many incidental incomplete checklists were submitted. Every single state had about 15 to 20% of their checklists being incomplete. I just thought that was interesting. There were, in our area, in our region, there was 5.6 possible codes per checklist, and the person who won this contest, which was just submitting Atlas checklists, is Dave Powell. So we had, for the next one, which is blocks with less than 20 hours of effort, we had 707 eligible blocks. Now, this is the most outstanding thing. 97% of Maryland and DC's observations had breeding codes on them. That is outstanding. And I think it's so outstanding that next year we should add that in to being part of the state competition, because I don't think that anyone else is going to have a number quite that high. That's phenomenal. Now, the person who won this one with less than 20 hours is Marilyn Veek. Now, we didn't have a winner for the 0 effort blocks because we just don't have we just don't have any, really. We've got some in the Aberdeen Proving Ground, and most of the rest are in the Chesapeake Bay, and you got to have a boat. So we skipped that one. But we've got, we had 16 priority species. 11 of those were confirmed. So not too bad. One of the interesting ones was a barn owl that was confirmed. So that was nice to see. And the winner of a checklist with a priority species was Kevin Ebert. For confirmations, we had 1.92 confirmations per hour and 6.5 confirmations per atlaser. Now, the person who won this one, Benjamin Costello, this is just submitting confirmed codes. The confirmation that won Benjamin this contest was for a cliff swallow. And in the comments on this cliff swallow, it was actually Benjamin's lifer cliff swallow. So I thought that was really cool. That was neat. So the next one here is for nocturnal. To me, this was like the one that I was really hoping that we would see a lot, because nocturnal is just hard to get. In 2020, I looked, and our atlas had 2 hours of nocturnal effort over this same weekend last year. We had 46 hours this weekend, so I would say that's quite successful, including 21 Chuck-Will's widows and 10 whippoorwills. And the person who won this contest was Kyle Rambo. Now, there were a few people who put in more than 14 hours of checklists over the weekend. So that's just checklists. That's not including all of the driving and everything else that's involved. And so I got to give a special shout out to them. These people are Kathy Calvert, Keith Eric Costley, and Marshall Watson. So thanks very much for all of your hard work. And thanks to everyone for making this weekend such a smashing success.
All right, thanks, guys. I'm Chris. I'm from the North Carolina Bird Atlas. As Doug had mentioned, we are in our first year, so we are the hatchlings of this group. We've been doing atlasing for the last roughly 3 months, I think is where we've been active. The 136 folks who participated this weekend submitted a total of 541 checklists, coding behaviors for 157 species. And a big thank you to everyone who participated in our North Carolina Bird Atlas weekend. It was fun getting out there. I really did have a great time. There was 43 new atlasers this weekend, which was amazing, and that is great. So we're looking forward to working with them, and they're just dipping their toes in, and they are going to be doing this for the next 5 years with us. So we did want to share some photos that the atlasers actually took over this past weekend, and we wanted to add them to our collection. But before I do that, there were some species that we had noticed that were in North Carolina that may draw some of you, some birders down here to help participate. So we had some red-cockaded woodpeckers, some brown pelicans, loggerhead shrikes, some painted buntings were identified, white ibis, a black skimmer, a royal tern, even a Bachman's sparrow, and a Swanson's warbler. So those were a lot of fun, and I appreciate people adding those to their checklist. That was great. So one of our images here. So yes, the northern mockingbird can be obnoxiously loud and everywhere. But believe it or not, this bird is one that was taken a picture of. It was the northern mockingbird was spotted 194 times in different records throughout the entire weekend. It placed it number 8 on our list of the most common species. Of course, almost half were singing birds. Singing birds, singing birds. Sorry, little mockingbird humor there. So again, we had a good time, and the mockingbird was great and identified. So if we can go from here, if you've ever tried to find a nest, you know that it is very difficult, very hard. From eastern bluebirds to the eastern phoebe, piping plovers, planetary warblers, atlasers pulled out all the stops and found 145 nests this weekend for a total of 34 different species. You may think that nesting may be winding down, but remember that used nests also count as breeding records. So for those atlasers that are still here in North Carolina, we are not done yet. We can still identify those used nests. So notable species that we located nests for, the least tern, loggerhead shrikes, the Mississippi kite, piping plovers, and of course the planetary warbler. So with North Carolina being a coastal state, North Carolina benefits from that diversity of all these different habitats, but also extensive breeding grounds for our coastal colonial birds species, including the least tern, the white ibis. While this bird while this bird right here is on the beach, you have a few colonies nesting on roofs of large buildings and grocery stores. Since coastal birds tend not to nest in commonly trafficked areas, we only saw 9 species coded this weekend, including the federally listed piping plover and 2 state listed species, the American oyster catcher and the common tern. So our winners, to get in there, for all those that have qualified, we did randomly select people out of those categories, and we had 6 different categories. Our first time ever submitting an Atlas checklist is going to be Judy Nicholson. So this was her first time atlasing this past weekend. So Judy, it was great having you out there, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you over the next couple of years, and we're going to expand your checklists. So next, Mark Connolly for completing a checklist with at least 1 coded species. We had Susan Mitchell with a confirmed species in a priority block. Our nocturnal priority block is Erla Beagle. And I'm pretty sure I know which block she was in because she had told me what day, where she was headed to that evening. So way to go, Erla. And our final priority block with less than 20 hours is Art Webster. So again, congratulations to the North Carolina Atlasers. You guys are making some strong effort. I will say that the best has gone last. So from here, we are going to just break out into some sessions. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Eric Thomas, who was the winner for our priority blocks with no actually visits. So for that, I think I'm going to turn it back to Paula and Doug, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about our breakout rooms.
All right, so in just a moment, we're going to move everyone over to some breakout rooms where we're going to have some just kind of fun discussion about the weekend. So I think it would probably be helpful if we threw these discussion questions in the chat so that everybody can see them, because I'm pretty sure when you get moved into your breakout room, you'll still have access to the chat and be able to see these discussion questions. So we're going to chat about these a little bit, and then afterwards we're going to talk about the overall state winner, so which state wins the grand prize for the weekend. So when you get a little notice that says that you're being invited into a breakout room, just click accept and it'll take you into the room, and then you'll get a warning when there's like a minute left in the room, I'm pretty sure. And then yeah, if you have any questions, just go ahead and chat us or talk to us if we're in the room with you.
I think, well, why don't we shoot to do this for about 15 minutes? That should bring us right to 8 o'clock. Then we can announce our interstate winner. And I'll also just say, you can also, if you leave your breakout room, it'll just bring you back to the main room. And I think Chris will be hanging out here if folks do have any technical difficulties as well. He should be able to also assign you 2 rooms. So if you're maybe if you're watching with a friend or something and want to be placed into their room, maybe I don't want to tee Chris up with too much work, but could probably help you out there. But we'll go check out our breakout rooms and share some fun.
Great. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some interesting conversations. I know we talked about everything from the wild horses on the Assateague to birding and what it's like to coordinate coordinate the atlases. So we had quite a diverse conversation in my breakout room. And hopefully you guys all were able to connect with some people as well. So we have already announced the individual winners in each of the states. But another aspect of this event was also trying to bring all of the atlases together and have a friendly competition across the 4 participating states. So we set up a few different categories that we were using to compare effort across the different states. And we are awarding a single overall state champion this year, and we've selected this little bird trophy that will go to this year's winner. And then, because we hope to have this be an annual event, it will be awarded to next year's winner, depending on the outcome next year. So it'll be a little traveling award that will go around from state to state as this event continues into the future. So the 3 categories that we competed in this year for the interstate competition were the nocturnal hours, the number of checklists with confirmations, and also the number of just checklists in general. And we did account for differences in population size and also geographic size, since the 4 states are quite variable. And we selected an overall winner. And drum roll. And the winner was Maine. And we actually felt like this was really fitting, and it made sense, because Maine is in the 4th year of their atlas. And so everyone there is really experienced, and the atlasers are dedicated, and everyone knows what to do, and they're really targeted, and they're going out and being super efficient. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we've got North Carolina, which is just starting out, and it's like their first atlas ever. And so everyone's just kind of new to this. And getting their feet wet. And then in New York and Maryland, we have quite an experienced population in terms of atlasers. This is our 3rd breeding bird atlas for each of these states. But we're just starting out. And so it just kind of makes sense that Maine wins this year. And I don't know if you guys have any other comments you wanted to share. Maine, if you wanted to say something.
I'll quickly
Doug.
chime in. Yeah, sorry, I guess I didn't introduce myself earlier. So Doug Hitchcock's with the Maine Bird Atlas. I'm the outreach coordinator. So I wanted to just share the quick perspective from the outreach side. And it's been really interesting as we were kind of looking at, what was different about Maine. I had fun reading back through our newsletters from the last few years, and especially seeing like how our messaging really changed to volunteers, where in the first 2 years, really, it was just everyone go out and like have fun atlasing. We'll fill in as much of the state as possible. And it's changed to being much bigger emphasis on priority blocks, making sure you code every species, get all those possible codes in as well, bump those possible codes up to probable, really kind of perfecting atlasing. And then our most recent newsletter was like, what is the most efficient way to complete priority blocks? So it's been a fun one, again, from like that, the lucky aspect where we're in year 4, where we've got a wonderful set of volunteers that are doing very purposeful atlasing. I know we often talk about like the difference between birding and atlasing, and we kind of see a lot of Maine's birders have slowly converted themselves into atlasers. So I think next year this will be a even more fun challenge to have all you other states a couple years in. But it'll be really fun to see kind of how this changes. And I think just from the breakout room I was in, it was absolutely awesome to hear the amount of engagement, like other people doing walks or getting other people involved. And that really is going to be one of the best ways to complete all of these atlases, is lots of people doing purposeful atlasing will help fill these in. Get out of your birding hotspots, go into your priority blocks. And by year 4, maybe you'll be taking home the trophy to your home state.
Is that a challenge? Are you saying that you're winning again next year?
Well, I will
in
say,
your final year?
I will say we will put in a ton of effort our final year, but then we'll have this, all these Mainers with just nothing to do. And maybe we'll start working our way south because, I think is that the breakup of years we're on. So we can all just slowly keep moving down to the Carolinas and finish it down there for North Carolina. But yes, we will throw down the gauntlet next year. Where are we going to ship this trophy to? Or will it stay in Maine?
Oh, I think we have to defend our championship and show that it wasn't just that, we're in year 4. But I think it really, I'm thrilled to see the amount of involvement over the weekend. The staff has worked incredibly hard to stay connected with all of our regional coordinators and our volunteers. And yeah, just huge thanks to everybody. And I, especially Julie, this was a great idea. And I'm really glad that you spearheaded all of this and got us all on board and involved. If you want Mainers to come south, though, you might have to make the Big Atlas weekend a little earlier in the year because we don't do well with heat. Like, this 90 degrees has been brutal. So,
I did want to say, shared in the chat, Pennsylvania's starting an atlas in 2024. So shortly after Maine's wrapping up, it'll be fun to see this event hopefully keep growing year after year as other states can join, while some of us get into the writing phase of our atlases. But maybe, Julie, it's too bad. I don't know if you can see the chat, but if, again, we should all virtually put our hands together, whatever it takes. This was such a fun event, and I think Julie should really get a virtual applause, a great thanks. This would not have happened without Julie pulling us together and running all the meetings in the background. And to see the map here with all these pins on it, it's so cool that that so many people came together over this weekend to work on the state's atlases. So, Julie, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I do just want to say that, my hope for this event is that everyone learns to appreciate birds a little bit more, and really appreciates for me, it's just this very intimate experience that you get by watching the behaviors of all these birds, particularly during the breeding season. So I'm glad that there are so many people out there that share that enthusiasm. And like you said, Doug, I do hope that this event grows and grows every year, and across hopefully the globe. So so the very last slide, I hope everyone comes out and celebrates all these breeding birds with us again next year.
Yay, everyone. You'll have to look at the recording, Julie, when you have power again and see all of the chats. It's great.
All right.
Great job, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all stay in touch with your state atlases, especially if this is your first time experiencing atlasing. We hope you stay in touch with us.
Gray catbird.
Right. See you, everyone.
Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.